The approval of the minutes from February's 23rd meeting. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes? Hearing none, I need a motion to approve the minutes as written.
I move that we approve the minutes as written.
And a second? Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor of approving the minutes as written, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the minutes have been approved as written. And then the next thing on our agenda is discussion and possible action on correspondence with Wausau School District for John Marshall School. And you should have received a packet in the mail on how to save your historic neighborhood school. And Christine, did you want to go through this packet, or Gary, do you want to?
Just by way of explanation, I don't know that we need to go through it completely. I just think it's really good information to
Okay.
have in regard to John Marshall and in the future, probably, down the road. But I thought it would be nice to invite Gary Gisselman to our meeting to give us any insights that he might have or answer any questions on how best to approach the school board or, the Wausau, or officials in general, probably even, on buildings such as schools. So, like I said, I asked Gary to come along, and he is approaching. So if anybody has any questions, now would be a good time. Oh, did we get the letter, as a matter of question, did we write the letter?
Not yet. I mean, it was, I guess, being drafted in the process of hearing that, we may have someone who would be willing to go and speak and supply some of this information, so it hasn't been finalized or sent yet. I guess that was something to discuss today is, an official letter from the city, or do we want to just offer more of a soft invitation to,
Okay.
if we can talk about.
We'll talk about that next then, I guess. Sorry, didn't mean to disrupt interrupt. I just thought I'd ask. Gary, did you want to say a couple things or in reference to the fine packet of information that you gave us?
Gary Gisselman, 319 Park Avenue, Wausau, 54403. As a member of the Friends of Wausau Historic Landmarks, I was at the Plan Commission meeting when they decided that, the motion to wait 6 months. So, and then giving the school board till 6 months to decide what they want, what a potential future of John Marshall is. So, in the meantime, as a preservationist, I think we tried to look at any building and try to restore it to, so I just looked through some of the literature trying to find out, that there are schools restored, you don't have to tear down. You can rebuild around the front facade. There are other ways of preserving schools and bringing it up to the 21st century without tearing it down. And I think I've let the Preservation Commission, decide on how it wants to proceed. I just thought that the Preservation Commission should have somewhat of a sense of that options are always available, that the literature from the National Historic Preservation site and other sites are saying schools can be preserved. It isn't necessary to tear something down to build new, and I would hope that we'll see what the school board says with regard to how it's going to be proceeding, but I think the Preservation Commission should be aware of what's going on so that when that time comes, the Preservation Commission is prepared to act in some way. I don't know if that helps.
Absolutely. And like I say, you gave us that nice piece that looked at some examples and such. That was very helpful. Did anybody have any questions for Gary while he's standing here?
Maybe not. Okay.
Thank you for coming, Gary.
Yes, thank you, Gary, for coming and for this wonderful packet of information.
Just, there's more literature out there there's just a lot of literature out there. This is just a sample, but I'm just sort of giving you a little bit of a sense of the literature out there in a variety of ways to save schools.
All very good resources for approaching the school board and saying, this is not unusual, it can be done. And I think it's a good starting point. So if nobody has any questions, I'm sorry, I don't mean to lead.
No, that's okay. Just a comment on the article. I mean, part of it goes into, preserving the school, as a school and renovating it and, maintaining it as a functioning modern school, which I think is a good strategy. I mean, I think we talked last time, though, about, there's other ways to preserve buildings rather than, keeping them in operation as they are now. I mean, adaptive reuse, we have examples in Wausau of schools and commercial industrial buildings that are repurposed for other uses, and sometimes that works just as well, if not better, than, just trying to maintain it in its historic use. So, I mean, I guess I just keep that option open to us as the Preservation Commission, that we are concerned about the preservation of the structure and the facades, and, what happens inside the building may not be as important to us as preserving the actual structure itself. So if there's other literature or other, research that can be done in that area, I think that's worth exploring as well.
Well, we could bring up the examples of East High School, how that was redone into apartments.
And of course, is it Schofield or Rothschild Elementary? I never get that right. Schofield, on Old Grand Avenue, of course. Two prime examples right here in the area, so.
That, yeah, they made apartments of that too, didn't they?
They did. And as Brad said, it's, we don't mind if they take the structure and make it into something else, just so the structure is still
Just-
there and looking, like it should.
Looks like it should look. Okay, so then how do we want to proceed with the school board? Do we want to send a letter, or do we want to have a presentation on?
I would suggest we send a letter offering up, meeting with them, whether that's a casual one, couple people and a couple people just talking, or whether it's something more formal like a PowerPoint or a presentation is fine. If they want to do it maybe during one of our meetings here, I don't know if that's a possibility. I guess I would say we should write them a letter saying we'd still like to, we are going to pursue this, but we'd like to, make sure you are well informed of our intentions and what the end game is and what the possibilities are, and that it's not a, you have to keep it absolutely the same on the inside, et cetera, what the boundaries are. So I would say a nice letter saying, we're going to do this, we're going to pursue it, but let us tell you, like I say, what the end game is.
Let's just talk about where we stand procedurally on this whole thing. So at an earlier meeting, we voted to recommend landmarking John Marshall School. The next step in the process is the Plan Commission, and that's where we're at right now. It got stalled. So the Plan Commission didn't forward any recommendation whatsoever to the council. They decided to table it for 6 months. So when we say we're going to pursue it, I think we have pursued it in effect by recommending it to the next level, which is the Plan Commission. Now it's in their hands. So I don't know if it's our job to start lobbying the school district or perhaps lobbying the plan commission to get this thing moving forward to the next level, which is the council. Council ultimately decides to landmark or not. They do that based on our recommendation and do that based on the plan commission recommendation.
Or is the answer all of the above?
Well, maybe, but we can, talk to the school district all day long. I suppose if we convince them, the school board that is, to not oppose the landmarking, they could take that position back to the plan commission. The plan commission then might be more inclined to forward this to the council, but ultimately, it's got to be the plan commission that makes the next move here.
I think if I remember right from the commission meeting, and anyone who's there or listening, correct me if I'm wrong, one of the reasons they did table it was because of that letter from the school district saying, they have issues with it. That was one of their main factors was, why are we trying to do this if the school district is not interested?
Well, sure, and that's maybe not all that surprising that they would say, we don't want any other layers of restrictions on our buildings than the ones that we impose ourselves. I think they've probably got a history of doing that to some extent. But the council also has a history of, I think, landmarking properties in opposition, when there's opposition from the building owner. So ultimately, the council's got to make a decision on this, but they can't even make a decision till it gets out of the plan commission. Let me just ask this, if staff knows this, does the plan commission get to table this forever? Don't they have an obligation and a duty to make a decision at some point?
Or
Yeah.
can we put it forward to them again?
Yeah, I mean, I think the action was to, and Deb's raising her hand, but to answer Kevin's question, they did table it. Usually when you table something, you put it on the table for a specific period of time, then you take it off the table
Right.
versus voting no. If they would have voted no, then I would have think the recommendation would have went to council.
Right?
Following that on a split vote.
Right.
This commission voted in favor of it, that commission voted against it, then the council, weighs that option. But the motion was to table it for a specific period of time. So it's on the table now, and it will be brought back off the table in 6 months, so.
Hopefully for a decision at that time by the plan commission, right?
Correct, yeah. And I think, last time, we could have, staff or the commission maybe should have pushed for a specific recommendation for or against. I guess that way the council could have had their say on it, in a timely manner. But I think in this case, the action was, given the fact that we did receive a letter from the school district or the school board that said, they were requesting more time essentially to do their due diligence, so that was being granted to them. So, yeah, I guess, again, it's on the table now, and we'll keep an eye on the timeline and bring it back to Plan Commission. And I guess it's up to us to decide how we want to influence that particular action.
Okay, Deb, you have a question?
She's muted.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
All right, good. Well, there's a few factors that you need to be aware of that are impacting. First is that for the Planning Commission, there are 2 alders that are on there. Tom Neal and Patrick Peckham are both ending their terms and they're retiring. So there will be 2 new people on the Planning Commission within a matter of a month or so. So that will have an impact one way or the other on that. Also, Patrick was the alder of this neighborhood, has been very well known. And I do think this neighborhood, of any neighborhood in Wausau, they are extremely active and proactive. And so I do think if the neighborhood gets behind it, one way or the other, things will proceed. The other point I guess I'd like to make is that with a number of the alders or future alders on the committee for the council, some may be living in newer homes and really don't understand much about the historic part of keeping landmarks. For me, I have a 101-year-old home. I have lived in, when I lived in Chicago, in a former book publishing apartments that were turned into lofts. So I've seen developments where they were completely emptied and became new housing. And I do think we have a number of older buildings that are vacant around town that somehow of maybe having a joint meeting or somehow with the council or the committee of the whole as education might be helpful to have people understand more about the preservation. And we have good examples like with East High that's been a successful apartment for 15 years. So there's a number of factors that are changing here, and especially on the Planning Commission. It will be new members, one way or the other, in a matter of a month. But I think, as what was said by Brad and Linda, to get it to the council, we still need to maybe educate more the rest of the council or the new council of what is involved, because a number of them may not be aware and may just see landmarking as just a way to make it more difficult. I've also, back in the 1990s, lived in Kenosha County, where they had a consolidated grade school out in the out near Paddock Lake in Salem, Wisconsin, and it ended up it was 1,000 students from K through 8th grade. So there are some issues with the school board's approach of making a bigger school that I do think a number of our neighbors and parents will not be in agreement for. And a lot of the neighbors in my area want the neighborhood schools. So there's a number of factors, and I just wouldn't panic at this point.
Thank you, Deb.
I just want to say Deb made a very good point on the two alders that are stepping down. Pat Peckham is the one who said, let's table it for 6 months rather than just killing it. And Tom Neal is the one, I believe, who actually said yes to landmarking. So just something else to consider.
Thank you, Christine. So how do we want to proceed then with this new information? Do we want to write a letter and get it to the school board and the plan commission? Or do we just want to wait and see what happens when the new aldermen are elected?
I think part of the discussion at plan, I don't know if it was in the official motion or not, but was to work cooperatively with the school district. So I think we need to at least make some inroads there. And
this is Brian here. I guess I err on the side of companionability and collegiality, which is to say, I think that writing a letter to the school board in deference to their hard work that they're doing, and also in our commitment to work with them and to help them to see the landmarking of buildings as a wonderful opportunity is good. It's good civic leadership. And then I also think, for what it's worth, also letting the Planning Commission know that we appreciate their attention and appreciate their desire to wait 6 months as the school district does its due diligence, and to assure the Planning Commission that we've reached out to the school to partner with them and and to at least give them an invitation to meet with us in any way, whether we go to one of their meetings or they come to one of ours, to see this as an opportunity. I think Mr. Gesselman's handout is helpful in crafting an easy sort of pitch in that regard. I don't know who the gentleman who was talking, who said, you know, where the conflict really lies, so to speak. But I tend to err on the side of good, healthy communication, and I'll reiterate what I said last time. You know, they did send a letter direct to us, and I think it's appropriate to respond.
Thank you, Brian. Anyone else have any comments on this? Okay, then at this time I need a motion to move forward by sending a letter to the Plan Commission and to the school board.
I think, well, if I can, just, staff plan commission, Melissa and I are both there. We can provide an update. I don't know if it's going to be an official letter. Maybe it's a staff memo or something to
Okay.
that effect. Maybe not an official letter, but that'll probably be that form of communication, if that's okay with the commission.
Should we make that in the form of two different motions, perhaps? One for a school board and one for, or can we still bundle it?
I'd say you could probably bundle it together.
So then
I'm
I
having a
still need
little
a,
difficulty hearing Brad. Am I hearing Brad correctly say that there might not necessarily need a motion, that this is just sort of a directive, and that Brad can draft these letters? Is that, but I'm also having a little difficulty hearing.
Sorry, I'll try to speak up if you can hear me better now. I was just saying, to Plan Commission itself, we staff that commission. It can be just not informal, but it'll be a staff memo versus a letter addressed to, say, the mayor, who's the chair. And we can just keep them updated. We could update them every month on our progress if we need to. I guess it doesn't necessarily need to be a letter to the Plan Commission like it would be to the school district, since it's internal and it's another commission like we are, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so procedurally, the only motion would be for the letter to the school district. Am I hearing you right?
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
Before we vote on getting a letter to the school district, we ought to probably say what the letter's going to state, so we know what we're voting on.
Yeah, I mean, we have some feedback for that, some input to the letter, I think. Commitment to work together. We still are pursuing it. Just a response to a formal response to the letter that they sent to us. And whatever else you'd like to include.
Mostly the offer to meet with them in
Yeah.
any format they'd like, basically. Whatever makes them most comfortable.
okay, then I still need a motion.
I move that we create a letter to be sent to the school board of Wausau, offering a meeting in the format of their choosing, to discuss the landmarking process and how it works and how we can work together.
And a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor to do a letter stating that we'd like to either meet with them or either at our meeting or at their meeting, whichever is best for them, and that we're still interested in pursuing the landmarking status and what that entails. And we have a second. Is there any further discussion on the motion? Okay, so hearing none, all in favor of this motion, say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, motion carried, and then Brad and I will work on getting a letter. Thank you, Gary, for coming this afternoon. Then the next thing on the agenda is the possible discussion and possible action on landmarking properties in the Ringo Family Brick Homes District. Now, we have discussed this in the past, and 3 of those buildings are not non-contributing buildings. Do we wanna continue pursuing this? Because the John Senior and Augusta Ringo House is already a local landmark.
Yeah, in the survey, we did a historic survey, as you know, a couple years ago, and consultant looked at the district of the John and Augusta Ringo House on the corner, and then 3 brick buildings to the west, and her conclusion was that it's really not eligible as a historic district. So there's a little explanation there after I went back and looked. The 3 brick homes are Ringo brick, but there's little else about them that supports their eligibility to the National Register, just based on that merit alone. So again, her recommendation is that they're not eligible together as a district. We look back, this is going back to the last meeting, we looked back at some of the people who lived there. There weren't really any names that jumped out as historically significant. The old maps from the turn of the century, it looks like there's different buildings there, not the buildings that are there now. So there's a question about, when exactly they were built there or possibly moved there, which would, sort of inhibit their historical significance if they weren't there originally, if they were somewhere else. So we did mention that, or we asked, I guess, if we should look for individual designation last time, and I guess I haven't found anything myself that would indicate that. I don't know if we want to reach out to the Historical Society and see if they can dig anything up, but again, based on our survey that we did, there really wasn't much evidence to support the landmarking that I can tell, so.
And the owners haven't, stepped forward ever and said, hey, I really would like to landmark my house? Or rental property?
Yeah, well, there's 2 of the 3 are rentals, and as we know, I think the one on the corner is a commercial counseling agency.
Right.
But yeah, 2 of the 3 other ones are rentals, and I'd be surprised if they would like them landmarked, I guess.
I was just wondering if anybody had come forward already ever,
The one that is landmarked, it was done at their request,
Right,
way back in time.
yeah, the one on Grand Avenue.
Right.
So I think at this time we should not pursue landmarking those buildings at this time.
I would agree.
I agree.
Okay. Then, Deb sent me, the next one is discussion of potential landmarks and districts. Deb sent me an email regarding the Salvation Army building on Callan Street. Because, Deb, do you want to talk about that?
Sure. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yep.
I was at the Planning Commission meeting last Tuesday, last week. The Salvation Army had received money from Ray Kroc's wife, Ray Kroc started McDonald's, and he had passed on first, and this is about 10 to 15 years ago. And originally I had thought she donated $1 billion to the Salvation Army, but she's donated $2 billion. So there still is money available. And the crux of her donation was to create new youth community centers around the United States. There is a newer one that was built using partially these funds in Green Bay. And I've heard it's beautiful. So as part of their long-term plans, they are in a number of buildings. They have the building 202 Callan Street, which is their lunch program and administrative offices. But that is a former telephone building, which they are expecting, once they consolidate their operations in a few years from now, that building will be sold. So I'm hoping we will consider the 202 for being historic at some point. The rest of their buildings, their chapel and their shelter, are on Second Avenue between Elm and just north of Alexander. And their plans are to purchase the former Covantage Credit Union that's right across from East Bay, which is kind of a ranch-style drive-up, as well as the parking lot. So that then behind it in the alley going towards Second Avenue is already Salvation Army property. So they had their first of 2 public hearings the last week, and so they'll be coming to the Planning Commission again next month. And they seem to be just in the initial phases. They do not have an architect, but they do have some rough plans of what they plan to do, and that they plan on, with their new shelter, serving more families as part of the new shelter. So I think once they buy the building and that they'll be working on other fundraising in order to get those other donations that are necessary to match Mrs. Croc's grants that are available. So I expect that once it's built, that they will be demolishing the old church, the old shelter, and then making that into a parking lot, primarily on Second Avenue. Now, there is a concern I have that Sam's Pizza, which has been on Elm between First and Second Avenue, and then on Alexander and Second Avenue, Christine Vanda Yacht has owned the old dairy for, I think, at least 15 to 20 years now. And so that they may end up being kind of lost in all the new construction around them. And so I wasn't sure if this is something that we would want to look at as a combination of things, but definitely I think for the Salvation Army, the older buildings are becoming more of a problem to maintain. The heat is an issue, and so I do think demolishing the old buildings is appropriate. But also the 202 Callan, I have been in the building a number of times. It's got marble floors, and to me, it's a very unique building, having been an old telephone company. So I do think that's worth saving, and with a commercial kitchen and their lunch program, I could see it becoming some type of cooking school, or maybe a restaurant with offices upstairs, or that kind of thing. So, but I wanted you to be aware of it, that I do think with this matching funds, that this is a good possibility to happen. And that even though they've had some of these funds nationally for over a decade and a half, with $2 billion starting off with, there's still probably money to do the match. And it would be a good thing. But I am concerned too about, is there anything we can do to kind of protect Sam Pizza from being kind of marginalized, being so close to the new building? Because I think that's their first location. And also with the dairy that Christine has owned, that I believe is the last dairy within the city of Wausau.
Thank you, Deb. Does anyone have any comments or anything they'd like to say about this?
I was just going to throw in that I don't think it's their first location for Sam's. I think it's their
No.
second.
They were downtown or something?
No, they were off over to the side before they expanded
Yeah.
Stewart Avenue. Thank you. So it's like their second, probably, but
Right.
it is a cool little building.
But they have been there a long time
Oh,
at
yeah,
that
forever.
location.
So trying to distill down what you were requesting, Deb, is that you want us to look into that first building that was the telephone building for landmarking possibility? Is that what the main request was?
Yes, it is. I don't think the other buildings are worth saving per se, but I guess because of how long Sam's has been at that location, as well as Christine Vandeyot was at the meeting on Tuesday, and I had hoped at some point that the Salvation Army might have wanted to buy her building, but that did not work out. And I think she still wants to save the dairy and have it kept it as for historic and just some other purpose.
Brad, is that one historic? Is that a landmark?
I
The dairy? I don't think it is,
don't
but I
think
thought I'd
it
ask.
is.
No, I think we've talked about it in the past, but
But I don't think
ran into
it's-
some things, but yeah, I don't think it's currently I'm pretty sure it's not
No,
currently
it's not
landmarked.
landmark.
Okay.
No.
Well, let's take things one at a time. Take 202 Callan. Is that part of the survey, Brad, if you know? Of
Yeah,
properties?
I didn't expect to discuss it in detail, so I don't know.
I
I
think-
want to say there is a picture of it.
The starting point would be just to see if that was addressed in the survey, what the survey says about it in terms of the age, the architectural features, the history and so forth, and then take it from there.
Right, I tried finding history, and I don't know if I'm just in the wrong site, but I couldn't find any history on it.
Okay.
If someone's, okay, it is in the survey book, but it doesn't tell me what page it's on.
Yeah, I don't know if it's actually discussed or not. It may just be Tracy, as part of her work, sometimes on some properties, just re-photograph them for the state and put it in their register. We could look at the State Historical Society to see what information is on it. So I don't think it discusses it in the survey, but
No.
we could possibly get a little bit more information on it.
Well, I would think that'd be the next step.
Right,
When does it date from? What are the historical uses, et cetera?
Right. Yeah, we can look into that.
okay,
I think that's, again, kind of what Deb said, the timeline is, it's at the very early stages for the
Yes.
Salvation Army, so there is time on this particular one.
okay. Then we're going to go on. Last month, Steve Miller had a question on the criteria for finding historic buildings.
Hold on a second. Can I go back and can I throw in one building I would like looked at as well?
Sure.
Sorry, I wasn't sure when we were done with the last one. Actually, staying in that area, Brad, go down the road, I noticed that Frostman's Fishery or fish store.
Fish market.
Fish market, thank you, was for sale and it's closed. But I noticed it was for sale and then I saw no for sale sign and I just always thought it was kind of a cool building. If we could look into the history of that a little bit, or I just know it's for sale. I don't know, it's just a fun building that I think might deserve a little attention. I could be wrong.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Christine.
I don't know the address other than Second Street Avenue.
Is it 108?
I don't know.
Okay.
Obviously, Ben and I have been hanging out in the same places.
Dairy and, okay, then, last month, anyone have any more comments on other buildings we should look into? Okay, then last month, Steve had a question on the criteria for buildings that we think should be considered historic. And so you were, in your packets, you should have received a couple of sheets of paper that says designation of landmarks and historic sites. So when you're looking at buildings, this kind of gives you an outline of, you know, if they should be considered historic or not. Some of the criteria that we go by. And then getting to the next meeting dates and the professional training sessions. There is a professional training session coming up Thursday. Yeah, see, that's wrong. It's Wednesday, April 6th, and Friday, April 7th. And it's called Camp Training, and it's gonna be all by video. It's free Historic Preservation Commission training. That Wednesday, April 6th, is from 12 to 3:45 p.m. And it's on legal basics, standards and guidelines for design review and state historic preservation and envisioning infill design. And on Thursday from 9 to 12:45 is meeting procedures, preservation planning for local commissions, and building public support for preservation. Now, I've already registered for both of them.
Do we know if they will have video available for later for those of us who cannot make it during that time? Otherwise, I can write to them and ask.
I don't know, I can contact Jason Tisch and find out.
Oh, that would be great if you could do that, because I'd like to do that, but that's during
The work
office hours, yeah. But if I could watch later, that'd be spiffy.
For those online, we do have handouts with this information. We can forward you the emails so you have the links if you want to look at them online.
And then also, the Wisconsin Association of Historic Preservation Commissions is having a state conference via Zoom Friday, April 29th. And that looks like it is all day, 9 to 4:30 p.m. And it doesn't say whether you have to sign up or not. It's going to be on CLG applications, requirements, and deadlines, made in Wisconsin, Wisconsin product features on trade catalogs, on the APT Building Technology Heritage Library, how can we tell the full story, landmarking underrepresented places in your community, WAH PC awards. Section 106 Form 1 is used, and how does a commission get involved? Tax credit for a historic building rehabilitation. CLG and local landmarking. Green Bay's success story. And an overview. So it looks like it pretty much goes all day.
I have the same question again. Do we know if this one will be videoed?
I can find out on this one as well.
Thank you.
Video, and it says it's gonna be all but done by Zoom.
Which gives me hope that they will record it.
Right. Anybody have any questions on those? Depending upon my schedule, I should be able to make the 29th too. That's a Friday. But I'm already signed up to do the 6th and the 7th.
If you could send me an email with those answers.
Sure.
I know that will be before that.
Speaking of that, when do our next meeting would then be April 27th. Does that work for everyone?
I think so.
At 4 o'clock again? Okay, historic press. Okay, is there any other comments or questions at this time?
Linda,
Yes, dear.
I wanted to make you aware of something I just learned about in the last couple of hours. The former Beer Man building near your home, would you like to discuss it a little bit more? I had heard they're looking for volunteers, money
Well,
to fix the roof.
we're not going to, there's another meeting in here at 5 o'clock, so we have very limited time today.
Okay.
For those of you that don't know, I live right next to where they're proposing putting a tiny home village for homeless people. It is right next to my property on South 9th Avenue, and the building where the parking lot is associated with is on South 8th Avenue, which they're calling a community center, which they're gonna serve food out of and give out hygiene products. And that's what Deb's referring to.
Well, part of the problem with the property is that it's the former Zastro beer distribution way back when. It's concrete block. The roof is bad, the windows fell out. They lost heat 4 years ago, so I think the plumbing shot. And so it's a smaller, brick, concrete block building with the parking lot off of 9th Avenue. So if they convert the property off of 9th Avenue to tiny homes, there would be no parking. And also, on the south end of the property is the railroad tracks,
Yeah.
where 3M is using it to couple and uncouple train cars
Deb,
all
I-
during the day.
This sounds more
Yeah,
like planning
I don't know that
commission.
this is in
This
any
is
way
not
related to
historic.
historic preservation, so I think, and it's not on the agenda, so I don't think we can discuss it any
Oh,
further.
I understand.
Thank you.
Especially since, okay, so then, if there's nothing else at this time, I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
I second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, everyone, for coming. We'll see you next month. And in the meantime, have a good Easter.
Thank you.